Welcome to the brand new Skyrim challenge, the destruction spells only run. I'm gonna keep it brief. I can only use destruction spells, shouts, and staves. And I'm going to be using 3 mods, both the epic vanilla armor and weaponry texture, and finally Sky UI 5. So please, stay tuned for the rest of the video. I woke up on the cart with Ralof, Ulfric, and Lokir. We were being brought to our deaths by the hands of the Imperials, which I am siding with this playthrough. While I usually play as a Stormcloak, I am playing as a Dunmer, so I kind of feel wrong siding with the quite racist against Dunmer Stormcloaks. So yeah, when we arrived in Helgen, we deboarded the cart, and I made Oisig, a dark elf. I would classify as the ugliest Skyrim character I have ever made. He looks more like a little gray alien than an elf. Then we were brought to the chopping block. We see a Stormcloak get his head cut off, then it's our turn. But then we are saved by Alduin, the dragon. He may be our target for this run, but he still does save us after almost getting beheaded. So after that, I ran with Ralof up a tower, then jumped over Alduin, and then ran past, perched Alduin with Hadvar, and then past the main gate with Hadvar, and finally into Helgen Keep with Hadvar. I open a chest and get some Imperial boots, but I forgot the armor. And then we go down to the area with 2 Stormcloaks, and I kill them. Now, I'm going to tell you why I went with a Dark Elf. That is because they start off with 10 extra levels on destruction. Also, they look cool. Well, maybe not Oisig, but still. Now, after killing those Stormcloaks, I took a pair of gauntlets and a set of armor. Now, I know I won't need it for long, so then Oisig and Hadvar got to the food storage room, and then we had to fight 2 more Stormcloaks, which, while I didn't die, I still had a bit of an annoyance from. But then, we grabbed some potions and left. After we left, we went downstairs and into the torturer's chambers. We helped the torturer and his assistants dispatch the 2 Stormcloak attackers. Then I, using some lockpicks from the ominous knapsack, I opened the cell with the dead mage, and robbed his body of his robes, hood, potions, and gold, and then the assistant joined us, and then we left for the next fight. The next fight was in the cavern of many Stormcloaks, and I attempted to fight them. Then the assistant died, and I ran. Me and Hadvar could not do that alone on Master difficulty, but I kept running until I got to the Frostbite Spider Cave, which I then killed those only with little difficulty. And then I got to the big cavern where I easily toasted a bear, and then left the Helgen Keep. When I and Hadvar arrived outside, I was prompted to go into survival mode, which I did not, but Hadvar did tell me to go to Riverwood and speak to his uncle Alvor. And so I was off, and I walked down the road a ways to the Guardian Stones, where I chose the Mage attribute. And then I swam the rest of the way to Riverwood. When I got to Riverwood, I talked to Alvor, who told me to tell Jarl Bolgrif the Greater of Whiterun about the attack on Helgen, and then he gave me a bunch of stuff, and let me take more of his stuff from his tables and such. I sold most of it back to him, because during this playthrough I need money, and the 86 gold I now had would help with step 1 of my soon-to-be-revealed plan. After equipping some iron gauntlets and boots I found on Alvor's table, I was off to Whiterun, which I swam and walked to. When I got to Whiterun, I didn't stop in Whiterun. I actually stopped at the Whiterun stables. And now you may be confused, but this is when the next part comes in. I took Borlam's cart to Winterhold to join the college. When I get to the college, the doorwoman, Feralda, says I need to cast the Mage Light spell on the seal. So, here's how I'm going to justify the Mage Light spell being used. And then the lesser ward later on. And that is that they are needed to be used 1 or 2 times. so I will use them that once or twice. Same with Unrelenting Force with the Greybeards and Whirlwind Sprint with the Greybeards and on the way to the Thorn of Yargan Windcaller. So, when I get to the college, I cast Mage Light and get access to the college, where I am then tasked to talk to Maribel Irving, in which she gives me a tour and Novice Destruction robes, which is what I was hoping for. And then she sends me to my first lesson with Tolfdir. So, Tolfdir, in the lesson, gives me a lesser ward spell and has me cast it. So I do. And then he tells us to go to Sarthal, the first ever Nordic city. But before I go to Sarthal, I fast travel to the Whiterun stables and then go into Whiterun so I can talk to the blacksmith. I sell my iron boots and a steel dagger I picked up at Alvor's, and then I was off by cart to Riften to hopefully sell the one necklace I have to Madesi, which I did for 337, even though the necklace of minor stealth or minor sneaking, I don't know anymore, was worth like 1,437. But after that, I fast traveled to the Whiterun stables to take a cart to Solitude. When I got to Solitude, I went to the Radiant Raiment, which I thought would have some Destruction and Alteration robes from the Arcane Accessories pack, included with the Anniversary Edition of Skyrim. But when they didn't have those robes or any spells, I fast traveled to Whiterun to check the store Arcadia's Cauldron, which of course they didn't because it's an alchemy shop, but I figured anyways I might as well try. So I went up to Dragon's Reach, not to start Bleak Falls Barrow, but instead to try talking to Farengar about some spells. When I got to Dragon's Reach, I talked to Farengar, and he had some robes of Conjuration and Illusion, which, while they are cool, they are not what I need. He did have the spell Ice Spike, though, which means I now have 3 destruction spells: Flames, Sparks, and Ice Spike, which I should find useful. So I sold him a Spark spell tome I had gotten in Helligan Keep, and some extra novice robes and an extra novice hood that I had. After all that with Farengar, I traveled to Winterhold to walk to Sarthal. On my way there, I froze and cooked some wolves, and one novice ice mage, who did not have that good of robes, but I did take them to sell later. And then, I met Tolfdir and a few other students at the entrance. I went into Sarthal with Tolfdir, who told me to help Arnel Gain. When I got to Arnel Gain, he told me to find 4 artifacts. So I found the Enchanted Ring, and the Enchanted Ring, and you can't forget the Ancient Amulet, which then I had to put on to break down the door/wall that it was on. Then, when Oisig and Tolfdir went in to where that was, when Oisig and Tolfdir go into a room that was just broken into, time gets frozen by a man named Nirin from the Sijic Order, who warns me that we can prevent disaster, and then I told Tolfdir, and we had to fight a Draugr and a Restless Draugr, then go into the room where they came from, which is really cool burial room built up into the ceiling. This type of room actually only shows up twice in the entirety of Skyrim, and that one of those is in the Dragonborn DLC. There was a handful of Draugr, which I mainly killed because Tolfdir was not much help, but after that we pulled 2 chains to the next room, which held a lot of Draugr, and after about 20 minutes and no deaths, I killed them all. And then it was time for the dungeon puzzle. Number 1, of course, and I totally did not look it up, and totally did not. I would never, because this is actually one of the easiest puzzles in any Skyrim dungeon. But after that, I went to the next room, which held the Draugr White, which by far is the hardest enemy so far. Probably because I am still level 1. He had one-shot me, and I had to retry, but after having him slowly chase me through all of Sarthal, backtracking the entire way, I killed him, and then went to the next room, which had another puzzle. Then after a few attempts, I got at it, and beat it. And then I and Tolfdir found the Eye of Magnus in the next big area, and a Draugr named Yrek Galderson. But that annoying fight is going to be for part 2 of the Destruction Spells Only run. Sorry for leaving you guys and gals and people on a cliffhanger, but before I get into the shameless plugs, the Skelly End Video Question is, what was your guys' favorite part of the video? Or the challenge so far, and also feel free to suggest other challenge ideas in the comments. But yeah, the best answer will get a shout out in the next video, even if it's not part 2 of the challenge. So yeah, follow me on Twitter at SkellyGaming0. Join my Discord server, the Skelly Squad. Subscribe to me and my podcast, Us Be Ramblin', which can be found on YouTube and Spotify. And those will all be in the description. So yeah, goodbye. See y'all in part 2. Adios.